We got a little Gulfstream Park Saturday Pick 5 for you segment on That's What G Said coming up, and very excited for the first time on That's What G Said to have Josh Rodriguez joining us. Josh is someone that I'm sure many of you know from the great work he does with On the Wrong Lead and really good stuff handicapping the races and promoting racing on social media. Josh, buddy, you and I have gone back and forth before. I think we've been on streams here and there, but never had you on the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Oh man, it's a pleasure. I was happy to do it. I know we had other stuff planned, and then Santa Anita decided to get itself snowed in apparently
Yeah,
this
I mean,
weekend.
this was the first time in LA County that there was blizzard warnings. It
Yeah,
was hailing yesterday, which is just crazy. So
yeah. I saw that it's snowing in Vegas too, or
yeah,
it snowed this morning. So
yeah.
I mean, cats and dogs living together. It's just crazy out there.
But I gotta say, whatever you're earning, it's not enough having to put up with Andrew Champagne all the time. Oh my gosh, I'll tell you, we love Andrew. Talk to us a little bit about drinking champagne, Josh, and then talk to us about some of the other work you do with On the Wrong Lead. I love the way you guys do it. I always have your streams on in the background. It kind of helps lead me to horses that I maybe didn't have on my radar. You guys have a lot of fun. I love Caleb too. I've had him on this show many times before. Super sharp handicapper. Talk to us about some of the work you've done and some of the shows that you have out there.
Yeah, we kind of got started just doing on the wrong lead, just doing kind of YouTube videos. We noticed that when you go look out there for, hey, how to read the form, or how to, I mean, you find stuff from the early days of YouTube, or 10 years ago, stuff that may or may not be out of date. So we kind of were like trying to take a new spin on, introducing people to horse racing, involved in the Reddit for horse racing, involved in the Discord. And then, yeah, we do stakes previews and stuff on Thursday nights on YouTube, on the Wrong Lead YouTube channel there. Andrew Champagne and I, we do a podcast, Drank and Champagne, where we usually look at a sequence. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. I know we looked at stuff like Andrew's Eclipse Belt and things like that. And he and I obviously look at races differently. I'm coming more from a strictly a better perspective, where he's worked in the industry. He's worked on TVG, and he and I just kind of look at races differently, and it's always a great conversation. But yeah, we just try to have fun with it, and try not to be too serious. I know some people get out there and I think sometimes get real serious about things, but we try to keep it light.
You guys have fun, and I have fun watching you, and that's what it's all about. You can feel the just like you said, the laid back atmosphere, hanging with your buddies, talking about sports. That's what we all do, and you can feel it when you guys are having a good time. And I love the energy that you have on all of your shows, and definitely a subscriber, a viewer, and a listener. So Josh, we can follow you on social media for anyone who wants to find out more about all of your great stuff at Cherry Drank. And you play a little DFS too, which is, I think, is sort of why you said you'll take some swings, right? You know that like you got to be able to take a big swing here and there if you want to try to get some separation. The same thing in horse racing too. If you're giving me chalk every single race all the way down, well, you're not going to make any noise here. You're not going to ever find any separation. So you know what? I don't mind missing if I'm going to take a big swing sometimes, and I know that's something that we've learned in playing DFS. So let's dive on in to Gulfstream Park for this weekend. Let's look at the late pick 5. Pretty challenging sequence here that starts in race number 8 on Saturday, and it kicks off with a turf race. We're looking at the DRF past performances here, and I pulled up the formulator PPs, Josh, and not an easy way to begin. Figure the horse that'll probably be one of the shorter prices in this race is Chasing the Crown, who has been good overall for Mike Maker. No real knocks on him. He was off from May to January, came back in January, sort of ran like a horse would off of a long layoff, needed the race, a little bit short, probably has, a little more bottom in this field. A horse that I like, because we do this as gamblers, right? I played this horse last time, so you sort of really pay attention to him. I played Hoku because his Tampa debut was awesome. And then he went a little longer. He ended up on the lead, and I think the cutback will probably help him a little bit. Talk to us about some of the horses who are on your radar in here, and who you would be looking at to use in a pick five.
Yeah. So, and just up front, I know you're a DRF guy. I use a different product that
Yeah,
may or may
yeah,
not be named here. But yeah. So on my form, chasing the crown really looks like a standout.
yeah,
The last out Brisnet fig is humongous compared to everything else. So to me, I always love when I talk to people who use different products, because I think if you look through the form here on the DRF, I don't think Chasing the Crowns is as big of a standout on the DRF form as he is on the
yeah,
Brisnet form. And if that's the case, this is probably a spot where you're going to try and play against the favorite. And that's kind of, when I'm constructing these tickets, when I'm looking at a sequence, I basically, my eyes go straight to the favorite and I kind of make a decision. Am I going to use, or am I going to try to go against, right?
yeah.
I try not to end up in so many situations where I'm using the short price favorite and then
Along
I'm
with
using three other
others,
horses,
right? It
you
doesn't do you
know?
any good. You're never going to make money long term doing that. You got to make your decisions early. Is it maybe this one and one other price, or is this your single in your stand, or you're just going to chuck them right out? But if you're using A, B, C, D in three races out of five on a pick five, it's just not great ticket structure, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I can see a case for the 9. I have the 9 written down. And this is just like I said, you kind of got to be fluid. We'll see if we get any scratches. It's a big field. The 9 is obviously a contender in here, going to be price dependent. This is the first leg in the sequence. Hey, maybe if he floats up a little bit and another horse takes money, maybe you kind of zig or zag there. But I definitely think the 9's in here with a shot. I think my top pick is probably going to be the 6, Sousa Summer on the
Nice.
stretch out. I was really interested. I like seeing these horses, like horses here, kind of stretching out. If you kind of look back, I feel like they started thinking that this horse was going to be a router. And they've routed it a couple times pretty successfully. And I just think he's kind of rounding into better form. Second off the layoff here for Bill Mott, who's winning at 18% on this meet, gets Jose aboard. They're hitting at 50% over the last 60 days. He sees fit to ride here. It seems like whenever he's on the Mott horse, it's live. You're getting 3-1 on the morning line. Probably going to be more forwardly placed than he normally is, just for the fact that he's a sprinter stretching out. But yeah, I think that he's the one that's kind of coming into form at the right time, to kind of go against some of these other ones here. That's kind of my top pick in the spot, but I have a couple of other price plays that I was really interested in.
Yeah, and what's
Um,
nice about Sousa Summer, just to point one other thing out too, that Churchill turf course, I don't take a whole lot of the results because it was so funky, right?
mhm,
When they had to redo it and everything. But what was interesting, he was actually favored in that race over Chasing the Crown, when they
yeah,
raced back in May. So, and what's nice is while he didn't win, he showed what you want, right? He showed his speed and he was forwardly placed. And that's sort of what you're going to be hoping for here, stretching out from really quick fractions going 5 furlongs. He should be very close or right on the front end.
yeah, and I know he broke his maiden going 5.5, but it seemed like Bill Mott immediately started him kind of routing once he came into his barn. Ran some decent figures, seemed to kind of improve. So I just think this is a horse that at 4 here. Summerfront, who's by Warfront, is the sire here. So I don't think routing is really going to be an issue here. Stormy Atlantic on the bottom. So I think that this is a good spot for him. This is kind of I think more of like a light bulb horse, right? Took a lot of tries to break its maiden, but I think this is one that's going to get better as he kind of gets older here. Um,
You said you had a few others too, right? Talk to
yeah,
us about some of the others.
I got three kind of price plays here, and this was a really tough race.
It is. Yeah,
So the two inside horses, the one Call Kurt and the
totally
two
agree.
Ghost Giant.
Yep.
Um,
Both of them agree on both too.
yeah, so Call Kurt, came in from that like mid-Atlantic area, off of some nice races. I mean, third by a neck, second by a neck, and then finally won a race there, going between a mile and a mile and 16th each time. Comes in, gets washed off, runs on synthetic, and I mean, still runs okay. Me personally, I think turf horses run on synthetic pretty well, but I think synthetic really has to be treated as a third surface. So when you see a turf horse try synthetic, and I mean, ran a decent figure,
It was
right? The
fine.
figure matches up, but the ended up fourth by 2 lengths. I think that coming back on the turf, you're going to see a little bit of improvement. Second off the layoff here,
Yep.
which is a good move here for Antonio Sano. Jose Morelos is going to ride here, and I think he's going to sit just off the pace, and he's going to kind of get. First run, he's going to get a nice rail trip. I think he's going to save a bunch of ground. So I think the one at 8 to 1, I think is definitely a horse I'm going to be including, maybe as a B type for me more. And it sounded like you like this horse as well.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. You mentioned second start off the 4.5 month break. You're getting back to the turf. And overall, this is a horse who's had some of the more consistent turf form. It just feels like a really nice fit here. Saves ground from the inside. I think won't be right on the lead with a couple others that we said are quicker, but shouldn't be too far back. Maybe sitting fourth or so. Could be in a really nice spot, saving all the ground. I absolutely agree. The price of 8 to 1 is very fair. And then right next door, we have another live one too, right, Josh, with Ghost Giant. We are not very far removed from some very strong turf efforts for this horse. Just 3 and 4 starts back. Like we're just talking about October and September of last year. And this is a horse who was also on the synthetic last time out that is more of a turf horse for sure.
Yeah, and I kind of looked at it the same as you, right? If you go back, I mean, on Brisnet at least, that July 15th race, that race on Brisnet, it matches up with the best anybody has done here. I think it's like what, an 83, 84 on the buyer
Yeah, the
scale.
buyers.
But I mean, this horse is just super, super consistent, running those mid 80 buyers. Came back to Aqueduct and ran 6.5 or 6 furlongs, looking at November. Came to Gulfstream. They stretched it out a little bit. Now they're kind of cutting the horse back to a mile. And I think a mile is what this horse wants to do. Mile and 16th. I don't know. This, like you said, this horse is not that far removed from a couple of really, really good races here.
This
That
race is there's an excuse, a legitimate excuse. The January 13th race. Well, it was a race that was won wire to wire, where there
Mhm.
was no passing in that race. And that's not going to set up well for him, right? He's a
Yep.
horse who needs a little bit of pace to run at. So now all of a sudden we can eliminate the last 3 races. Like we call them, as men, we call them reasons, right? Like my girlfriend calls them excuses, but I call them reasons why I didn't do something or reasons why we didn't run well. Ghost Giant, synthetic, then chasing a wire to wire winner, and then on a good turf course at Aqueduct 3 starts back. Now all of a sudden, if you can just eliminate those 3 races, I know you don't want to do that when the horse is 5 to 2, but when a horse is 15 to 1, you can do that. You can start being forgiving for horses because those things are built into the price.
Yep, absolutely. Like you said, like with short prices, you're looking for reasons to get rid of them, and for longer prices, you're looking for reasons to include them,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, and maybe sometimes that leads you to kind of making a stretch, or you're making an
Yeah,
argument for a horse that maybe, but I don't
that's
know. I
the
feel like that's how
approach.
you
I'd
find
rather have
value.
that approach long term
Yep.
than throwing in the horses I don't like defensively. I got to use them. I'd rather be doing what you and I are doing and trying to talk ourselves into a 15 to 1 shot, because you only need 1 or 2 of those
Yep.
along the way each day or every other day or once a week.
Yeah,
Um,
no, exactly. I'm right there with you. The last horse I ended up using was the 11 Glider, which is posted all the way on the
yep.
outside, and that's Mark Cassie and Emilio Jaramillo. And I don't know. I thought that last race on Brisnet was pretty good. Horse, it seemed like, I think, was his second best race, at least on the Brisnet scale. The other good race was that race at Woodbine routing.
Yeah.
So this horse probably just wants to route. They've been training him on the turf. I think that they just want to get this horse on the turf. Quality road, lemon drop kid on the bottom. I mean, this sounds like probably a turf horse. Probably can run on anything. I honestly probably wouldn't mind some slop to run in, actually. But yeah, I thought this was another one that's going to be, sitting outside, but is going to let all the rest of the horses in front of him kind of go. So I think he's going to be able to tuck in that 2 or 3 path, and maybe get a nice run here on some of the pace setters. So
Yeah. Not an easy race to kick off the pick five, and we found at least a few horses that we feel comfortable throwing in that should be nice prices. So if you want to try to spread out a little bit and try to beat a favorite that doesn't look on paper, at least on the DRF past performances, doesn't look like that much of a standout. It might be a much shorter price than others. We've given you 4 or 5 possibilities here that should all offer you some more value. So hopefully we've helped you out in race number 8 as we turn the page to the Gulfstream Park Sprint in race number 9, Josh. And we have a fun horse in here named Candyman Rocket, who's always been a pretty good horse. He was a horse who was on the Triple Crown Trail, on the Derby Trail a few years ago. He won the Sam F. Davis back in 2021. He was favored in the Tampa Derby, and he just didn't really fire. He came back in the Wood Memorial, again, was a little disappointing. And then since then, we haven't seen him run a whole lot. He's kind of been his own worst enemy. He was off from May of 2021 all the way to February of 2022. He came back just about a year ago, raced one time, won, and then was off for 11 months. He shows back up off an 11-month layoff and wins again. So we know he can run off layoffs and fire fresh. We know he's got ability, and now he's actually going to put a couple starts together. So he's probably kind of trending in a good direction, at least for himself as a horse. Do you like his chances in this race against this field?
Yeah, I mean, if you kind of look at his past performances, just cross out all of the. I mean, I know he won the Sam F. Davis, right? But
But the
just
routes,
cross out all of the routes, and you got a horse that is just going to be tough to beat. I think in this
yeah,
field, that first, obviously the first try at Churchill at 2, he ended up. I don't know. He was a sloppy track, whatever. You cross that out.
yep,
Comes back, break his maiden very impressively, and then runs at Sam F. Davis, kind of pairs up that figure. But I mean, who did he really beat in that race? Who knows? You know. But look at his other route tries, not good. They finally cut him back at Belmont, and he runs a really really nice second to a nose.
yep.
Pairs up that kind of pairs up that buyer that he did breaking his maiden, and then he just fires a 91 and a 94 off fairly long layoffs. And now obviously he's going to be second off the layoff here. I don't see a way around Candyman Rocket in this spot. 3 for 3 at Gulfstream. I think he's going to be very tough to beat in here.
Yeah, the way the race shapes up too, he's probably going to sit third, maybe, or fourth, just like behind a couple of the speeds who go at
Hmm.
it. There are a couple really quick horses in here, like Super Ocho is very, very fast. I'd imagine that Uncle Ernie is going to want to be right on the front end, and Lightning Larry is also really quick. So those horses go. It should set up perfectly for Candyman Rocket to the outside of them to just sit off beautifully. He puts 2 starts together. Like, he's a very, very logical favorite and probably a horse who people will single in the pick 5. And I really wouldn't talk you off doing that. Like, he's hard to poke holes in, really. Like, we went through his career, and you can make legitimate excuses for the poor performances, the sloppy debut, and then the 2 route races, and then everything else makes sense. You
Yeah,
know,
and I kind of a word of caution on a horse in here that probably looks really really good to some people, and that's the 5 Uncle Ernie. Um, if you look at this horse, you look at those buyer figures, and you're like, wow, like this horse can really 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 run. Well, look what happened when he went from Parks to Gulfstream,
yep.
right? A sharp drop off.
All
I don't
5
necess
wins at Parks.
and I don't necessarily think that that is like the horse didn't show up. I tend to think that figures at parks, for some reason, they
Get
just don't
inflated.
tend to carry anywhere else. I don't know if they're inflated. I don't know what the deal is, but if you're looking at parks figures, like they are only valuable, I think, at parks. They do not travel. So while this horse looks like, hey, this horse might be faster than Candyman Rocket, I would just have a word of caution that those parks figures are probably a little bit inflated, and that 84 that he earned at Gulfstream is probably right where this horse is.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of him either in this race with the way it shapes up. He seems pretty one dimensional too. He hasn't really shown that he wants to sit off of other horses, and I don't even know there are a couple other really quick horses in here. The
Hmm.
2 Super Ocho is very fast. Lightning Larry is not slow either. So I think with those 3 at least, they'll be cooking in here. If I were to go deeper, or if I was playing, exactas, tries, supers, a couple of horses that I would throw in. The 4 is probably like the most true closer in this race as of late. Like he's been the one horse who's actually been able to pass horses sprinting recently, and he picked up pieces against Lightning Larry. He might be a really big price, and when a lot of these speed horses stop, he could be passing horses. I'd have no problem using him underneath, and even the one, the rail is what concerns me a little bit with Scaramouche, Josh, but he might be able to work out the type of trip if he just sort of takes back and lets a couple of the speed horses go and then tries to sit and move around or move inside. The 1 and the 4 would be other horses I would use underneath the 7, who I agree with you. I do think that it's a fantastic spot for Candyman Rocket.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be very, very tough. The two does interest me a little bit, but you know, it, I'm just with all the rest of the
Other
speed in
speed.
here. Although the 2 is, I think, the speed of the speed. I mean,
I
he
agree.
led the Breeders' Cup Sprint, right? Hector Barrios just unleashed this horse, and that horse went out, and set some very, very fast fractions also at Delta Downs. So, yeah, this horse is definitely lightning quick, but if you look at his past performance, he tends to get caught, even going 5 or 6 furlongs. So, whether it maybe if you get a couple, maybe if like Lightning Larry scratches out or Uncle Ernie scratches out, maybe you can make a better case for the 2. But that
Yeah, I
might be a
agree.
horse that I use in second or third.
If one of the if there was less speed, he's quick. You know what you're going to get with him, but it just feels like there are a couple others that are really, really fast in here. So that is race number 9 on the Gulfstream Saturday card as we move along to race number 10, the middle part of the late pick 5. Josh, come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. We've
How
got
do we end up in the
Wonka.
same horse? How do we
There
end
we
up on the same
go.
horse in this
We
race?
look at that. We've got Wonka here. And I mean, when I was little, I always knew, you could tell what movie that I liked based on how damaged the VHS case was. And Willy Wonka, that thing was just hanging on by a thread, man. There was just so little left of that VHS case. I put that thing in and out over and over. Loved me some Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And I think this horse is very live in here, Josh, and it sounds like you do too, right? So go ahead,
Hmm.
talk to us a little bit about Wonka.
Yeah, I mean, I just love that last race, man. That last race. I mean, I in this race, I'm looking for horses that are coming in with some type of form. I in turf racing, I mean, speed figures are useful, but man, I not love me some horses that win or are up close. And this horse, I think has seemed to kind of find his footing here at Gulfstream. Ran first time at Gulfstream, won, broke his maiden, kind of came back, and ran kind of evenly. It looked like he kind of checked up a little bit in the December 4th race, but came back and won an optional claimer here, with a Junior Alvarado aboard. Bill Mott has been winning at 22%. I mean, he's just on fire at Gulfstream. So I thought that this is a bit of a overlay here, with Wonka at 8-1.
I agree.
Um, I had a really tough time with this race because Wonka is the only horse in this race I could tell you I like, but I don't feel like I like it enough to be a single. Um,
That's so funny because I feel pretty similar. Like I like him at his 6-1 ish and above price. And I think that's a fair value if you're looking for a horse to bet and the horse who I want to make sure is in all of my exotics. But then following him, like what makes this race so difficult is you have the 2 Chad Brown runners that are
mhm.
just the total wild cards, right?
Yep.
And they're both imports. You have Chili Flag, and both of them are coming off of long layoffs. We haven't seen Chili Flag since September of 2022. We haven't seen the 11 Spanish Baroque since November of 2021.
Yep.
And the 11 has sort of a strain. You could tell that this horse has had some issues along the way, Spanish Baroque, if you look at the work pattern. So this horse started training in July of 2022 over here. And then you get a couple works, you get a July and August work, then you miss a few works and you show back up at Monmouth. You start training at Monmouth at the end of August 2022. So you go August, September, 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 October, all the way through September. And then the first 3 works of October, all good. Into November, good. But then you miss a month from November to December. It seemed like every time they started to get back ramped up, they would miss a little bit of time. Since then, no, now we've got I think 9 consecutive works, the last 2 through December, all the way through January, all the way through February. But it makes this race so difficult because we know, Josh, these horses are going to get bet because
Hmm.
they're always going to get bet. So can either of them or both of them win? Well, sure. But I feel like they're just going to be way undervalued coming off that long, long layoff with all these questions to ask about them. But it's just, it's that kind of a race where it wouldn't shock me, but I certainly don't love them at what their prices will be.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it exactly the same as you. So the problem with the 11 Spanish Baroque, Lope de Vega, the sire, is a win early, win at 2, and they Lope de Vegas just generally don't tend to make a huge step at like 3 and 4, as like some of these other horses do, but really really big win early pedigree. And obviously, horse first time out won, going 7 furlongs in France. Came back and won an allowance race as well, and then like you said, just went on the bench for a very very long time. I will say that my on the wrong lead compatriot and good friend Caleb, he says if you ever see Monmouth anywhere on a Chad Brown horse, you just call it a fake Chad. Like it's
Yeah.
just a fake Chad Brown horse. And I mean this he was training at at Monmouth, which I would assume meant he was going to try and run this horse at Monmouth. So maybe doesn't think as highly of this one. I mean, I'm trying to read tea leaves here with two
Me too.
horses that he's shipping in and trying to figure it out. You don't want to use both of them.
No,
I think I'd probably have to prefer the 7 if
I
I were to
agree.
use one.
The 7
Chili.
ran I mean, the last time we've seen this horse, she was a 2-year-old, like you're saying. And we don't, and like her figures, she would have to have improved and grown up a whole lot, which she
Hmm.
maybe she has because she's 4 now. But we're projecting a bunch of improvement off a very long layoff. You mentioned the pedigree, and then on top of all of that, with the works, it's a bad post.
Yep. Yeah,
So
I can't bring myself to do it. It's
me
going to be
neither.
short. Um, I
I'd
mean,
prefer the 7 if you're going to
yeah,
use the one of them. I think so too.
yeah, I prefer the 7. I mean, if you look at the time form ratings, just kind of steadily improved via
She did
time
have some
form.
legitimate traffic in that race too. I watched the race at St. Cloud. She was like in between horses and in some traffic, and then she moved right up to press. But it was one of those where you're sort of like in traffic, and then you try to rush to get out of the traffic. So I didn't think it was a bad performance. It maybe looked a little bit better than 5th beaten 4 because the winner was sort of clear, and the winner came back to win their next start. So yeah, I'm probably not tossing her, but I think I'm chucking the 11.
Yeah, I mean, it was really really tough here to find anything else that I really just kind of wanted to like hang my hat on. I think if I had to pick another horse to use in here, would probably be the John Kimmel horse, the 4,
Yeah, that
making
one's
my
on my
move.
tickets. I think so
Um,
too.
just looking at this race, I don't see a lot of early speed. Horse that definitely wants to get the lead. And this horse doesn't necessarily need to get the lead, but I think going 7, this horse is gonna get the lead. I mean, this horse has got sprinter speed, has
By
led.
default.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
got sprinter speed. I think this horse is gonna get the lead by default. And Jaramillo is an aggressive rider, so I he might just get out there on the front end and just go. So I'll use the 4 making my move. I'm definitely going to use the 3 Wonka. I think Wonka is going to be uh that's I think it's going to be an overlay in this spot.
I
But
agree.
yeah, I like the 3 and the 4 the most here.
We're gonna try to get that golden ticket, huh, Josh?
Yeah.
I got a lot of
Hey,
these puns all day
Hey,
long, man.
anytime I go to Vegas, at least a 20 is always going to go into one of the Wonka
The
machines.
Wonka
So
machines,
yeah.
man. Oh, always, always. So that's a look. Yeah, I'm probably a lot of 3-4-7s in race number 10, Gulfstream Park. As we turn the page, final 2 legs of this pick 5 sequence. Again, a big thanks to Josh for hanging out with me here, talking through this pick 5. So, Josh, we turn to a 1-turn mile here. It's a first level allowance in race number 11. You have, I'd imagine, towards the I mean, I guess from like a betting standpoint, towards the outside, Judge Davis will probably get a little bit of support. We see American Prince, Stat, Bourbon Creed, but I don't think there's going to be like a really super short price or an overwhelming favorite in this race at all. The Principe de Oro coming off a long layoff was impressive in winning. Talk to us about how you saw this race.
Man, so this is a really tough race because um, you're going a mile on the dirt at Gulfstream, and in my head, that means, all right, who's going to get the lead? Who are the horses that are going to be forwardly placed that I want to use? And then you start scrolling, and you're like, a lot of these horses want to be forwardly placed or want
Yeah.
to be on the lead.
Yeah.
And, I get tricked very often at Gulfstream thinking that a race is going to fall apart. But
Me too. And it doesn't. I know.
and it doesn't. Yeah, and it doesn't. And so I don't think I'm gonna get tricked this time. But I'm gonna kind of use a combo here with two speed horses and kind of an off the pace runner. Um, I mean, I think the one horse Tiger here ran a really, really great race last time out on the Briz scale. Looks like also DRF tends to agree that 85 is
Yeah.
probably super competitive in this spot.
Yep.
6 to 1 on the morning line. It's a very, very flat race. And so when I see a flat race like this, like in my head, in a lot of people's heads, I think they're like, all right, it's a flat race. I need like 5, 6, 7 horses. Like I need, to really spread out. And I'm like, no, that's what everyone else is thinking. I'm going to try and stay narrow here. So
Yeah.
the one is probably going to be most of my money's going to be going through this one horse here. I am also interested in the horse just outside to him, the 2
Yeah.
Principe de Oro. I know coming off the long layoff, like you said, but I mean that maiden breaker at Aqueduct, I mean that looks like also like one that's got a shot to win here, especially if
Yep.
this horse moves forward at all. Obviously, you just pulled up the work tab, and I mean the horse has been working
It's
pretty
pretty
regularly
steady
here.
since December 24th. You
Yeah, so
got
there must have been a problem after that race, after that work, but that horse came right back and just started firing bullets.
and
So
we
I
know they
think
can
this,
fire fresh off a couple month break from January to April. This is longer, obviously, but fresh shouldn't be that much of a problem. And I think it'll just come down to do the two horses inside, do these two horses, make it a little difficult on each other showing speed, right? Do they make it,
yep,
if one of the two can get away, because you're right, you look at the rest of the field and their speed, there's a lot of like kind of like pressers, right? That
hmm
want to be close, but necessarily they're not like one-dimensional speeds. So then all of a sudden, if the rest of these horses start kind of tracking back a little bit, you look at Stat. I don't even know really how fast Stat is. These races might look a little quicker than you think because they're on synthetic and they're not really all that fast early. The two horses to the inside are both, I think, pretty live. And I think, they're both going to probably be around the same price. And they, where you're going to be in the top flight.
yep, and just like kind of like a not really a safety net, but a horse that I have marked down kind of as a B type, the 5 Desert Ruler. I think that this is kind of like you were talking about, that presser type, right?
Yep.
Wants to come from off the pace. I think it's got some really, really nice figures. I mean, obviously matches up. I'm looking on your form right there. Got a couple 90s and 91 there. And if you kind of look at those races, there's been a little bit of pace there, right? Going 23 and
Yep.
1, 22 and 4 at that 7 furlong race. So I think if there is some pace for Desert Ruler to kind of run into, I think that this is going to set up nicely for this type of horse here.
I
I
like
think
him.
it's got the figs, got that late kick. I think does need a little bit of a setup. So if the 1 and 2 do go nuclear and someone else kind of joins in, then I think the 5 is definitely a big candidate to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, and the last two races, both, I think you can make legitimate excuses for them. The comment line on December 23rd says wrangled back, and actually the horse had a good start, but they just didn't get aggressive at all with him. And what ended up happening, he got stuck in a really bad spot. He was in traffic. He kind of moved through. He had nowhere to go on the inside. You could tell he was traveling really well, and he gets pushed back all the way to like eighth, but he's only 2 lengths behind. He's set up right on the inside, but it happens so much where everyone starts to shuffle back a little bit, and all of a sudden you go from being in the second flight to like the fourth flight.
Yep.
And that was what happened with Desert Ruler. 2 starts back, and then last time out he just misses the break completely. It was a pretty bad stumble, and he was sixth. He was kind of inside behind horses. It was not a bad effort at all. He's going to be in my pick fives. I'm probably going to throw Bourbon Creed in as well. And I'm hoping it's not just because I've been seeing the Creed commercials out there and I went back and watched all the Rockies recently. So
Yeah.
I'm feeling an Adonis Creed right now, but I do feel like another one to have in case this race does come set up for someone from off the pace. He has a nice progression from 6 to 6.5. Now he'll stretch out the 2 sprints to a route, that 1 turn mile. And in the same race with Judge Davis, I thought he actually ran a lot better. He had a slow start. He was last inside, and then he got, shuffled back a little bit more. He had really good momentum, and he had to angle out widest of all, and then he just missed second. So I actually prefer Bourbon Creed over Judge Davis over those same two there, and maybe he's a horse who can come off the pace a little bit. But I agreed with you and think the 2 inside horses are live. Those are probably like the bulk of the horses that I'm using, and along with the 5 and the 6.
I, Speaking of the 6, there are 2 things. One, I got to double check, but I think I might have a bottle with Bourbon Creed on it, because Bourbon Lane Stables, they
There we
do
go, right?
the pin hook bottles, so
Nice.
you can always find those bottles, and they have the different horses and stuff on there. I know I have a Bourbon Dini,
Awesome.
which I don't know if he's ran yet, but Bourbon Creed, aren't you a little surprised they haven't tried this horse on the turf yet? It looks like they did a turf work, but
Which
Jimmy Creed, I mean, that sounds like a turf type, right?
absolutely, and I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see like it's probably only because both of the races on the dirt have been fine. It's not like he ran poorly in either one of them, but you're absolutely right. We're going to see turf in the future for Bourbon Creed. At some point, we've already seen the turf work there. A look at race number 11. Anything else to mention here, Josh, before we finish up in the 12th?
No, I'm ready to go.
Okay, let's close things out. Josh and I are both going to be alive at this point for big money in race number 12. And we have a mile turf race for maiden special weights. A horse who will be a very short price in this race, Josh, is Carl Spackler, who just missed. Is a pretty wicked beat too when you watch it back. Like he sits, kind of moves, he looks like he's going to win, and he just gets nailed. It was wicked. It feels like a race that you and I probably would have been alive for big money and needed Carl Spackler, and that would have been kicking things afterwards. How do you approach this race with a heavy favorite like him? Do you like him? Is he a single? Do you use him in one other? Do you chuck him out? What are you thinking a few days out?
So, yeah, I just kept on looking. I'm like, I don't know if you can beat this horse. I
Yeah.
think, um, and it's funny because as soon as I like tell myself that, the next thing I do is I try to beat the horse
Right?
again.
Always.
So
Always. You got to.
so I had a hard time here. I think the 8 is about as close as you can get to a single on the entire card. Like you said, just missed last time out, but I don't know. It's always tough with these maiden horses, right? To you never know who's on the improve, right? Who
Yeah.
maybe there's somebody better kind of hidden in here. Who
Yeah.
knows?
I mean, a horse like, for example, a horse like the one Saint in the City, he is just completely different, right? He sprinted on the dirt in his debut, and he actually was in a strong race, and now he's going to be trying turf, going long for a barn and connections who have been, uh, you know, heating up and having a really nice meet, and he's bred beautifully for the turf. When you click right here and you look on the turf, his Damn Overly Tempting only tried the turf one time, but was stakes placed. But he's actually a half to a horse named A Lot, who was a really nice grass horse. He was a 4-time winner on the grass, multiple stakes winner, was grade 1 placed, earned 475,000. You also see a couple other turf winners in the pedigree here. So there's a lot of turf there for the one. He's the type of horse who, I mean, based on his debut, he didn't show much. I mean, a little bit of positional speed at Saratoga in a dirt sprint, but if he looks like a brand new horse in this race as a 3-year-old going long on the turf, that wouldn't shock me at all.
Gino, all I can say is that this is either going to be a very, very good weekend for the both of us or a very, very bad weekend for the
We're
both of us.
seeing the same
Because
things,
the
right?
other horse, the only other horse in here, I think that you kind of need to use is going to be the one Saint in the City. I think you kind of brought it all up, right? You got a horse that is second time out in Bill Mott barn, which Bill doesn't send these horses out to win first time out, right?
No.
And he I think he does this a lot where he sends these horses out to go on the dirt ones before switching them over to turf. Not necessarily great first time on the turf, but Mendelssohn, like you said, has been winning 17% first time turf winners, 15% overall. Um, you know, you see the dam side, right? You got 6 starters, 4 of them turf winners. You got a stakes winner in there. Um, yeah, I mean this horse wants to be on the green stuff. Has got that bullet work on the turf two back. This is a horse that's definitely going to improve. It's just how much, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Needs to improve 40 points from his debut, which is a lot. But for a horse changing surfaces and changing to the right surface, second time out, I think changing to the right distance, routing. Uh, I mean, maybe you see it,
yeah.
and
Getting
6 to
Lasix
1
for
might
the
end up
first
being
time.
overlay.
He ran into a group that included Blazing Sevens, who is a grade one winner. Blazing Sevens won the grade
Hmm.
one Champagne, beat Verifying. We're going to see Verifying running this weekend over at Oaklawn Park. Bourbon Bash was also a nice one who came back out of that race to win next time out by 8 lengths. So, yeah, I thought I agree with you. I don't really have too many knocks on Carl because he does look tough in this race. And that
Hmm.
was a brutal beat. And he ran very, very well in that spot. The only other horse I would mention if people want to play exotics, I did think the 10's race last time out wasn't bad. It was his first start on the turf. And sometimes horses, people will see the fact that this horse dropped in for a maiden claiming tag and didn't win, and they may just get, he's not very good. But you know what? He's another horse that he perked up on the grass. That was his best race by far. He kind of had some sneaky trouble in that race too. He got beat out of a spot early in between horses, and then he had to tip out really wide. He was right up into contention, and then late things got really tight for him again. So maybe underneath, if people are using this as a spread race, that would be one more to recommend. But Josh and I are both on the 1 and the 8 in here as the top 2 to try to close things out. And I would have no problem using those 2 in like the last leg of a pick 5, 1-8. Josh, we've had a fun journey, my friend. It has been a blast going through this Gulfstream Park pick 5 with you. I really appreciate it. I hope this will be the first of many conversations that you and I have just like this, because I really enjoy your insight, and I really did have a good time talking these races out with you, and you are spot on. You and I are going to be talking with each other afterwards about what nice bottle we're drinking,
Yep.
or we're going to be talking about the value meal we got and the coupons we had to find for dinner on Saturday night. It's like one or the other, right?
Yep.
No in between.
Exactly. It's going to be all or nothing here.
Give us your plugs one more time, Josh. Where can we find all the great work that you do out there?
Yep. So you can catch me on Twitter at Cherry Drank. Also at wrong underscore lead for our on the wrong lead stuff. OnTheWrongLead.com. And you can find us at On the Wrong Lead basically everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We do most of our stuff on YouTube, but we post it to Twitter as well.
Tell Caleb I said hello, and give Andrew as hard a time as possible anytime you
Oh,
can.
oh, I always do.
Please do.
Have you
Please
have
do.
you seen just how insufferable he's been lately with that stupid Beamy Award that really didn't
Oh my
count?
God. I was like, that was the worst thing that could have ever
It
happened
was absolutely the
to
worst.
us. To
Yep.
us, the people that are around him, because
Hmm.
that thing's all over. He's got the trophy. He's been doing it he's been wanting that for years. He can truly like die a happy man now. He could, like, he's fulfilled everything that he wanted in his life. And oh yeah, he's out in Hawaii right now
Oh
with his
yeah.
fiance. Like,
Oh, poor guy.
must be tough being Andrew Champagne right
Yeah.
now.
If
But
I ever see Jason Beam, I love his podcast. I think he's a great race caller. I'm gonna introduce myself. I'm gonna be very, very cordial. But then I'm gonna tell him, Mr. Beam, I have a bone to pick with
you
you.
made a major mistake,
You
Mr.
created a
Beam.
monster.
You created a horrible monster named Andrew Champagne that we both love very much. Andrew, hope you're having a nice time in Hawaii. Josh, thanks again, buddy. This was a blast, and I look forward to you and I are recording this on like Thursday evening. I'm going to flip over in just a little bit and check out some of you and the guys with On the Wrong Lead. So thanks again, buddy. Good luck this weekend.
Awesome. Thank you.
Folks, thanks for hanging out with us. If you're watching on social media, this will do it. If you're listening to the podcast, we still have a lot more to come on that.